What if the reason you're not wealthy has nothing to do with your job, your education, or even your circumstances, and everything to do with how your brain is wired? The rich think differently, and not in the motivational poster kind of way. They're addicted to freedom, not comfort. They buy assets, not identity. They master repetition, not reinvention. They leverage time, not effort, and most importantly, they treat money as energy, not emotion. While most people are stuck in fear, ego, and broken beliefs, the wealthy have rewired their minds to stay in motion. Want real wealth? It starts in your mind. Everyone says they want wealth. They'll read the books, repost the quotes, maybe even listen to the right podcasts. But here's the truth that stings a little. Most people don't actually want wealth, they want comfort. And that's the problem. Because comfort is the drug that keeps you broke. Your brain is hardwired for survival, not success. It evolved to keep you safe, not rich. So anytime you start to lean into something new, something bigger, something financially uncomfortable, your brain throws up all the red flags. Doubt, procrastination, fear. You convince yourself the timing isn't right. You overanalyze. You binge on planning instead of doing. And deep down, it's because your nervous system is addicted to the predictable, to the known, to staying exactly where you are, even if where you are isn't what you want. The wealthy, they rewire that. They learn to lean into discomfort, not blindly, but strategically. They train themselves to get comfortable being uncomfortable. They replace their craving for safety with a craving for freedom. Because if you think about it, comfort and freedom often live on opposite ends of the spectrum. One keeps you nestled where it's familiar. The other requires that you step outside of that into uncertainty, into exposure, into risk. But on the other side of that discomfort is where all the asymmetric rewards live. Here's the part no one wants to admit. Wealth creation is often boring, sometimes painful, and rarely instant. You will feel like an imposter. You will have hard conversations. You will probably mess up a deal or two. You'll be misunderstood, judged, and you will absolutely be uncomfortable. That's not a glitch in the process. That is the process. The ones who win aren't the smartest in the room. They're the ones who don't tap out when it gets awkward. The ones who know the resistance they feel is actually the compass pointing them in the right direction. The difference is how they interpret fear. Most people feel fear and stop. The wealthy feel fear and lean in. They know fear usually just means you're stretching your current identity. It means your brain is processing a signal that you're in unfamiliar territory. But unfamiliar doesn't mean unsafe. And just because something is hard doesn't mean it's wrong. Think of it like going to the gym for your mind. The first time you pick up a weight, it's awkward. Your muscles shake. It feels weird. That's exactly what it's supposed to feel like. That's how you grow. And it's the same with money. The first time you negotiate a deal, buy a business, fire a bad client, raise your prices, it's going to feel uncomfortable. But it's also exactly the signal that you're stepping into the next level. Now let's go even deeper. The truth is, comfort costs you more than discomfort ever will. Every day you stay in that cushy, familiar routine, scrolling, waiting, wishing, convincing yourself next year is your year, you're paying a silent tax. And that tax is your potential. Wealth has a window. It's not going to wait for you to get over your fear. It's not going to beg you to show up. The ones who build real, compounding, generational wealth, they decide. They decide to move even when it's hard, even when it's lonely, even when they have no clue what they're doing yet. They act before they feel ready. Because here's the trick. No one feels ready. Readiness is a lie your comfort zone tells you, so you stay put. And if you listen to it long enough, you'll wake up 5 years from now in the exact same place with the exact same excuses, watching someone else live the life you said you wanted. So the next time your brain tries to talk you out of the leap, the investment, the cold email, the pivot, pause. Ask yourself, is this discomfort a warning sign or is it a growth signal? Because if it's a little scary, a little messy, a little outside your current identity, it's probably exactly where you should be. You don't need more time. You don't need more research. You don't need anyone's permission. What you need is to stop confusing safety with success. Stop letting comfort win. Wealth doesn't live where it's easy. It lives where it's earned. And if you can rewire your mind to chase freedom over familiarity, the money follows. Every single time, if you grew up hearing things like, money doesn't grow on trees, we're not those kinds of people, or rich people are selfish, then your brain has been programmed to reject wealth. Not consciously. No one walks around saying, I don't want to be rich. But deep down in the operating system underneath your decisions, those little scripts are running like malware. You can hustle all you want, build business after business, and still find yourself stuck at the same financial level because you haven't updated the core beliefs that drive your behavior. This is why strategy alone isn't enough. You don't just need better tactics, you need a complete neurological shift. We've all been raised in systems that romanticize struggle and demonize abundance. It's practically baked into the culture. School teaches you to become a good employee. Your parents, even with the best intentions, probably taught you that security is safer than scale. The media flashes headlines about corrupt billionaires, not the everyday people building real, ethical wealth. And so your brain gets trained to associate money with negativity. You start to believe you can either be rich or good, not both. And that's the poison. Because if your subconscious thinks wealth is bad, it will quietly sabotage your efforts to create it. You'll overthink your pricing. You'll undercharge your value. You'll delay making decisions that could lead to growth. You'll play it safe in the name of being responsible. But what you're really doing is protecting a belief system that was never yours to begin with. You inherited it. You didn't choose it, which means you can also unlearn it. The wealthy, they don't just think differently. They've trained themselves to think differently. Their minds are rewired to associate money with impact, with options, with agency. They don't see money as greed. They see it as a tool to solve problems. Problems for themselves, their families, and their community. They understand that being poor isn't noble and being rich doesn't make you evil. They realize that staying broke helps no one, not their kids, not their causes, not their legacy. And so they reframe money from a source of guilt into a source of good. You'll never out-earn your mindset. You might catch a financial wave for a year or two, but if your brain is still running on scarcity programming, you'll find a way to lose it, spend it, or self-sabotage just enough to bring you back down to what feels normal. That's why lottery winners go broke. That's why business owners plateau. That's why high-income earners still live paycheck to paycheck. Their internal thermostat is stuck at a lower temperature, and no matter how hard they work, they subconsciously bring their reality back down to match it. But here's the good news. Your brain is plastic. That means it's malleable, changeable. The same way it learned lack, it can learn abundance. You can create new neural pathways that associate wealth with creativity, with freedom, with contribution. You start by auditing the thoughts that come up when you think about money. Do you feel guilt, fear, anxiety? Do you hear your parents' voices in your head? Good. That's the wiring. Now start challenging it. When I started replacing the old scripts with new ones, when I replaced money is hard with money flows to value, or rich people are selfish with money amplifies who you already are, my decisions changed. I started choosing assets instead of expenses. I stopped negotiating against myself. I started seeing opportunity where before I saw risk. Not because the world changed, because my lens changed. This isn't about delusion or manifesting yachts on vision boards. This is about rewiring the actual mechanics of your thinking. It's training your brain to respond to opportunity with curiosity instead of fear. To hear money and think potential, not panic. That rewiring gives you access to a different set of decisions, and different decisions build different lives. You want to become wealthy? Start by becoming mentally unrecognizable to your past self, because the mindset that got you here isn't the mindset that will take you there. Wealth isn't just about what's in your account. It's about what's in your head. Fix that, and the rest follows. You know what's funny? We live in a time where people will finance a lifestyle they can't afford just to look like they're successful, while quietly drowning in debt, working jobs they hate, and clinging to identities they bought with credit cards. They'll drop $5,000 on a designer bag or a weekend in Dubai, but say investing in a business is too risky. That's not a wealth strategy. That's a dopamine addiction. That's a poor mindset wearing Gucci. Here's the truth. Poor people buy identity. Rich people buy assets. That right there is a mindset shift most won't make, because it's not sexy. It's not Instagrammable, but it's real. When I look at the difference between people who stay stuck and people who break through, it almost always comes down to this. One group is using money to build a version of themselves they want the world to see, and the other is using money to buy back their time, freedom, and long-term income. One is playing the short game, the other plays for legacy. So many of us were conditioned to spend money in ways that earn social approval. And the second you got your first paycheck, what were you told to do? Upgrade your car, buy new clothes, get the latest phone, look like you've made it. We were taught to spend based on status, not sustainability. And what does that create? Consumers, not owners, not investors, just loyal consumers in a never-ending loop of working and spending, working and spending. That's how the system stays in control, by keeping your identity tied to your purchases. But the wealthy, real wealth, not just high-income earners, they think differently. They rewire their brains to get high, not off buying something, but off owning something. It's a completely different neurological response. When most people get paid, they look for what they can spend it on. The rich, they look for what they can buy once that pays them forever. They've trained themselves to delay gratification in the present to create financial firepower for the future. Let me give you an example. Two people get a $10,000 0 cents bonus. One goes and buys a Rolex. The other uses that same $10 0 cents K to buy a small vending machine route. One gets compliments, the other gets cash flow. A year later, that watch is worth less than they paid. The vending machines, still paying, maybe even more if they scaled. And guess what? In 5 years, the vending machine owner can buy 10 Rolexes and it won't even touch their bottom line. That's how the game changes when your identity isn't for sale anymore. But this doesn't just show up in the big purchases. It shows up in tiny, subconscious ways too. The need to have the latest car, the craving for likes after posting that first-class flight, the compulsion to say yes to things we can't afford just to feel included. All of that stems from a scarcity mindset disguised as abundance. Because deep down, we're trying to prove something. But the moment you stop needing to prove who you are with your wallet, you free up your mind to start building actual wealth. So what's the move? Start small. Every time you're about to spend money, pause and ask, is this buying me status or sovereignty? If it's status, question it. If it's sovereignty, meaning it gives you more control over your time, more income, more leverage, lean into it. You'd be shocked how quickly your brain starts recalibrating. You'll start seeing opportunities where you once saw expenses. You'll crave ownership instead of optics. This is how the rich stay rich. They don't just earn more, they spend differently. Their brains are rewired to prioritize assets, things that put money in their pocket over identity boosters that only drain them. They understand that wealth isn't loud, it's quiet. It's not the guy showing off the Lambo on Instagram, it's the woman who owns the parking lot the Lambo's sitting in. If you can flip that one switch in your brain from consumer to owner, from spender to investor, you'll start seeing the world like the wealthy do, not as a place full of things to buy, but as a place full of assets to own. And when that becomes your default setting, wealth stops being a dream and starts becoming a result. That's when you stop chasing money and start attracting it. You know what most people get wrong about wealth? They think it's about innovation, about having the next big idea, about being the genius who reinvented the wheel. But let me tell you something that the rich rarely talk about, because it's so unsexy, so boring, it almost feels like a secret hiding in plain sight. Wealth doesn't come from reinvention. It comes from repetition. Now, that might feel like a punch in the gut if you've been told your whole life that the goal is to think outside the box or be some kind of visionary, but look closely. The people with real wealth, they're not chasing new ideas every week. They're mastering old ones. They find something that works, and then they do it again and again and again until it becomes a machine. And here's where the brain comes in. Most people are wired to crave novelty. The algorithm in your mind has been trained to get little dopamine hits from newness, new projects, new products, new platforms. But that wiring, it's killing your wealth potential. Rewiring your brain for wealth means falling in love with boring. It means trading the thrill of the start for the discipline of the repeat. Most people will do something once, maybe twice, and then give up because it's not exciting anymore. They tell themselves they're not passionate about it or that it's not working fast enough, and then they jump to something else that gives them that rush again. But the rich, they push past that. They train their minds to find reward in routine. They delay the dopamine and get high off consistency. I've seen people build million-dollar businesses with one product, one offer, one customer base, and one strategy. They didn't add 10 new things. They didn't build an empire overnight. They just got scary good at one thing, and they did it until the market couldn't ignore them. They didn't need to be smarter than you. They weren't more creative. They were just more focused, more consistent. Their brains were trained to ignore the shiny stuff, and that's what you need to realize. If your brain is constantly reaching for newness, you're building mental habits that sabotage long-term wealth. You'll find yourself starting over 100 times, never gaining traction, always stuck in the launch phase. You'll have 10 half-built bridges instead of one that actually gets you across the river. The wealthy, they build one damn bridge and then they drive a freight train over it. Day after day. This is why so many people burn out. Not because they're working too hard, but because they're spread too thin. They're trying to juggle 12 ideas, 5 businesses, 3 side hustles, and a podcast, and they wonder why nothing's working. Your brain is not designed to hold that many priorities. Focus is a muscle, and most people have never trained it. Repetition is how you build it. Repetition is how you wire your brain for wealth. I know this isn't glamorous. I know do the same thing over and over doesn't sell as well as start your dream business in 30 days. But that's exactly why it works. Most people won't do it. Most people get bored. Most people quit when it stops feeling good. That's your edge. If you can fall in love with the repeat, you'll outlast everyone. You'll build a moat while they chase magic tricks. Every business I've ever seen that prints money operates on this principle. The offer is boring. The system is boring. The marketing is repetitive. And yet it works. Because the founder trained their brain to value consistency over novelty. They built habits that compound. They didn't chase trends. They created a reliable machine that scaled. And when they got bored, they scaled it more. This is about rewiring at the deepest level, about telling your brain, you don't need to feel excited to build something meaningful. You just need to show up. Again and again. It's about replacing the question, what's new, with what works. Because once you find what works, your only job is to do it better, faster, and with more leverage. So if you want to rewire your brain for wealth, don't ask how to innovate. Ask how to repeat. Because the ones who get rich, they don't chase butterflies, they build hives. And they do it day after day until honey flows. Those people never build real wealth because they're trapped in the cycle of doing everything themselves. They pride themselves on being self-made, on being the hardest worker in the room, on grinding it out. That mindset might win you respect, but it won't win you financial freedom. In fact, it's one of the biggest mental traps that keeps people broke. Because if you're doing everything yourself, you're capped by your time, your energy, your skill set. Wealthy people think differently. They rewire their brains to operate with leverage from day one. They don't ask, how can I do this? They ask, who can do this better, faster, or cheaper than me? And that single shift changes everything. The truth is, most of us were trained to think like employees, not like owners. We were taught that if you want something done right, you've got to do it yourself. That's cute on Instagram, but it's deadly in business. Because owners don't get paid to do, they get paid to think, decide, and design. They focus their energy on the highest leverage activities, deploying capital, building systems, directing strategy, and hiring smart people. And to do that, they have to retrain their brains to let go of control and ego. They learn to trust, delegate, and most importantly, invest. Sometimes before it feels safe to do so. That's where most people stall. They don't feel ready. They think, once I make enough money, then I'll hire someone. Or once I have more experience, then I'll start investing. But that's backwards. The wealthy know that leverage is what makes the money, not the reward for having already made it. They hire before they're ready. They delegate before it's comfortable. They invest while others hesitate. Because they understand that money flows to momentum, and you can't build momentum if you're buried in tasks that someone else could do at 80% of your ability. Look at any successful business, any high-performing operator, and you'll see the same pattern. They stopped doing the $10.00 tasks and started focusing on the $10,000 problems. They got out of the weeds. They used their brain as the command center, not the engine. That means if you're still the one designing the logo, answering every email, editing every social post, or cleaning up after your team's mistakes, you're not operating with a wealth mindset. You're trapped in labor. You're working in the machine instead of owning the machine. And owners get rich, operators burn out. One of the fastest ways to rewire your brain for wealth is to build what I call a leverage loop. First, get clear on what you're amazing at, what drives revenue, what moves the needle. Then ruthlessly remove or delegate everything else. Every task you keep just because you can do it is slowing down your growth. Next, take the time and energy you freed up and reinvest it into better decisions, better deals, or better team building. And finally, once you generate more revenue from that higher leverage work, you reinvest again into better systems, more automation, more capable people. That loop compounds and fast. The rich aren't smarter, they're not working harder, they've just trained their minds to think in systems, not sprints. And more importantly, they've released the idea that their value comes from effort. It doesn't. It comes from impact, from insight, and from leverage. They know that the person who makes $1 million isn't doing a million things. They're doing a few things really well. and they've built a system, a team, and a structure around them to do the rest. And let's not romanticize the grind. Because if you're addicted to being the one who does it all, what you're really addicted to is control. And that's fear in disguise, fear that someone else might mess it up, fear that things might fall apart. But here's the reality. Letting go isn't the risk, holding on is. Because the longer you hold on to doing it all, the longer you delay the exponential power of leverage. Time doesn't scale, you do. Through people, through capital, through systems. So if you want to build real wealth, don't ask how you can do more. Ask how you can own more. Think bigger than effort, think leverage, because that's how the rich keep getting richer. And that's how you break out of the cycle. For good, most people think money is logical, but when you watch how they treat it, you realize it's anything but. They panic when the market dips. They over-celebrate when a little cash comes in. They get paralyzed in decision-making because of a $5,000 0 cents risk, but then blow $10,000 0 cents over a year on Uber Eats and vacations they can't afford. Why? Because most people attach emotion to money. Deep, inherited, sometimes even unconscious emotion. And that emotion, fear, shame, scarcity, ego, becomes the exact thing that keeps them broke. But the wealthy, they don't play by that rule book. They see money differently, not as something to fear or worship, not as proof of status or morality. They treat money like energy, neutral, powerful, and always in motion. It's not emotional to them, it's electrical. It flows to value, it responds to direction, and when you understand its pattern, you don't chase it, you position for it. That's a massive mindset shift, and most people never make it. Here's the truth no one talks about. The moment you attach your worth to your wallet, you give away your power, because then every up and down in your bank account becomes a judgment on your character. Every financial mistake becomes an identity crisis. You miss one opportunity, and suddenly you're spiraling about whether you're meant to be successful at all. That's not how wealthy people think. They decouple their ego from their income. If a business fails, they don't take it personally. They take notes. If they lose money, they see it as tuition, not trauma. That ability to emotionally detach is what keeps them in motion when everyone else freezes. Think about it. How many people do you know who have been thinking about starting a business for 5 years? They're stuck in mental loops paralysis because to them, money means something personal. It's proof of intelligence, proof of capability, proof that their parents were wrong or right. It's heavy. So every decision becomes life or death. And when decisions carry that kind of emotional charge, they almost never get made. Or worse, they get made from fear. But if you start viewing money as energy, everything changes. Suddenly, it's not about proving yourself. It's about learning how to direct flow. Just like water runs downhill, money runs toward value. Doesn't care how you feel about it, doesn't care if you think you deserve it. It flows based on leverage, utility, and positioning. When your brain really locks into that truth, you stop reacting emotionally and start playing strategically. You build systems, you measure upside, you calculate downside. And most importantly, you stay in motion. The rich don't fear losing money the way most people do because they know it's not finite, it's fluid. If they lose, they already have a playbook to regenerate it. They understand that wealth isn't what's in the bank, it's what's in your head. So even if it gets wiped, they still have the operating system to rebuild. That's the advantage of rewiring your brain. You stop trying to protect every dollar like it's your last and you start investing like it's your future. Now, does that mean the rich don't feel anything about money? Of course not. But their emotions don't drive their decisions. Their frameworks do. They run numbers even when fear is screaming in their ear. They say no to short-term dopamine for long-term yield. They learn to sit in discomfort without reacting. That's a muscle and it's trainable. Most people let their feelings interrupt their finances. The rich feel the same things, but don't let it change the play. And the best part? You don't need millions to start rewiring your brain like this. You can practice right now. Next time you're scared to invest, ask yourself, am I making this decision from strategy or emotion? Next time you miss an opportunity, don't beat yourself up, write a playbook. Study the data, adjust. When you detach your ego from your economics, you unlock a kind of clarity that most people never get. You stop seeing money as your identity and start treating it like a tool. You stop fearing motion and start creating flow, because wealth doesn't just follow intelligence, it follows energy. The people who stay in motion, who learn, who adapt, who keep playing, those are the ones money flows to. Not because they're special, but because they've trained their brains to handle the current. That's the shift the rich don't talk about, but it's the one that changes everything.